สวัสดีค่ะนักลงทุนนักวิเคราะห์และท่านผู้ชมทุกท่านนะคะพบกันอีกครั้งค่ะสำหรับ Opportunity Day ของบริษัท Symphony Communication จำกัดมหาชนค่ะดิฉันธาริรัตน์วงศ์ศรีจันทร์นักลงทุนสัมพันธ์ค่ะและข้างๆที่นั่งกันอยู่นี้ก็คือผู้บริหารที่จะมาพบปะทุกท่านและนำเสนอ
including some outlooks for the remaining year 2024. So in terms of our profile, we have been in the business for more than 20 years. We're focusing on the fixed line telecommunication services. We are listed in the company. We are listed company in Stock Exchange of Thailand, and we also certify with the relevant ISO standards and also the cloud security for our business. We are the first private companies to own the cable landing stations, and also we invested into the submarine cable systems. In terms of the shareholder structures, we have our Time.com as part of the shareholders listings with 46.8%. In terms of who we are, I think if you look at the slides, we are pretty much focusing on the fixed line telco services, and our business model is on a managed services provider perspective. Our assets are actually spanning across the whole entire nationwide on terrestrial fiber networks, and we also have neighboring connectivity going to international network connectivity business, and we also have submarine cable that is linking between 3 different countries. And with that infra assets, we can actually provide different footprint and services in Thailand, outside Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong. Services that we can actually roll out to our customers typically are connectivity related services coupled with cloud securities as part of the solutions. And we also have ICT solutions, which is actually typically a bundle solutions for enterprises. And we also have data center services if we need to provide a one-stop solution for our customer who require connectivity plus data centers. Our customers are typically B2B markets plus international segments. B2B means we're focusing on enterprises, governments, our ISP and non-ISP partners. Whereas from international side, we are actually focusing on the global carrier who demands connectivity into Thailand and outside Thailand. We also do have OTT and hyperscaler cloud providers who are also using our services, given that we actually provide the fixed line telecommunication services for in Thailand and outside Thailand. So if you look at key services that we have, so we have 5 pillars of services, and this 5 pillars of services is also typically managed end-to-end by us by providing the end-to-end solutions, 24/7 services for call centers, and we also have our dedicated team to support all the professional services attached to all these services. So connectivity are typically everything from lease line, internet, Wi-Fi, and ICT solutions that we can actually bundle together. We have our internet gateway, so we can provide internet direct access for all the enterprises who require internet access. And then we have data centers that we can actually provide co-location services as part of the partnership with our data centers in Thailand, and we can actually provide bundle solutions for them if they require connectivity plus co-locations. Cloud and security are typically our new vertical solutions that we actually aim to provide to our enterprise customers. And these cloud services, which I will explain a little bit more later, is actually towards the private cloud services. And securities are all sorts of securities to provide typically for network and IT related. And this is actually in line with the risk and the risk of the enterprises are looking at in terms of how they want to manage the networks and IT devices. And hence, we're actually providing the security on top of the connectivity that we have. If you look at a bit on our infrastructures, we are the telco that actually lay fiber across the countries. So our fibers are running across nationwide Thailand and connected to a few borders between Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, and Malaysia. And if you look at the key statistics of our nationwide fiber networks, today we have 6 international gateways. Our international gateways are typically at the border, which are actually coming from our nationwide footprint, fiber footprint, and connected to the neighboring countries. And then from there, we will go to Singapore and Hong Kong. So today, our coverage fiber footprint is about 50 provinces. So we can actually run our services with our fiber touching all the key provinces in whole nationwide Thailand. We have terrestrials and submarine networks. Our submarine network, we have the submarine cable and the cable landing stations in Rayong. Our cable systems is actually known as MCTs because it's connected to 3 neighboring countries, Malaysia, Cambodia, and Thailand. And then we also have DC to DC connections, which we will probably talk a little bit more in the next few slides. And we are with our fiber footprints, we can actually connect it to typically all the commercials or office buildings in Bangkok and outside Bangkok. We have about almost 300 buildings that we can serve. And we also have industrial estates, means our fibers will run across in front of the industrial estates and also connected to insides to roll out our services to any of the tenants in the industrial estates. So if you talk about internet service connectivity, so we have our own internet services gateway, that we are actually peering with all those different providers, be it whether it's a content, cloud, or carriers providers networks. So we actually pretty much have full direct internet services that we can actually provide to our customer who need access to locally contents or overseas content. Again, it depends whether it's hosted in Thailand or outside in Thailand, which is typically in Singapore and Hong Kong. So the next slide, we're talking about our international submarine connectivities. So our subsea cables, which is our own subsea cables that we invested, MCT, are also connected to different cables across the world, typically running from Thailand to Malaysia, and from Malaysia or Singapore, we also can connect it to different cables as part of the group synergies, because Time.com has actually a few cables that is actually part of their assets infrastructures. A little bit on the data centers. As I mentioned, we have 30 data centers interconnections. So typically all the data centers footprint that we have in Thailand, we have our fiber running through inside to the data center so that we can actually provide our connectivity services to any of the data centers, including the customers that actually hosted their equipment into these data centers. In Thailand, especially in Bangkok downtown or maybe nearby Bangkok, we have about almost 30 data centers that are connected and it's touching across different provinces, which is actually overlapped with our existing network that we have. And typically all these data centers in Bangkok or even in Chonburi or eastern provinces, we are also connected, and it will also link to our Moli CLS cable landing stations, which is actually in Rayong. With this fiber network in Thailand, our gateways, and to neighboring countries, we have our cable landing station CLS. Hence, what we will be focusing on going forward will be on the infrastructure expansions. And this expansion is very important for us because you will see that all these are driven by a lot of the demands coming from the hyperscaler data centers, the OTT, the cloud that are planning to set up their infrastructure in Thailand. The moment when they set up their infrastructures in Thailand, then they will actually be able to provide end-to-end services directly to the end customers. And typically, end customers are depending whether it's a carrier's perspective, local enterprises or multinational enterprises, and the consumer perspective. So, example, we will be focusing on DC to DC, which is data center to data centers expansions. We will also be looking at CLS, which is cable landing stations to data centers, as part of the connectivity that we will link up all these DCs and CLS so that the connectivity services can be provided to those OTT or hyperscalers, especially from the announcements that they will actually set up their local footprint in Thailand as part of the Thailand hub. And with that expansions, then we will also be moving into our gateway, our cross-border expansions, because when these OTT or hyperscalers comes to Thailand, all those neighboring countries, including the telco carriers, non-telco carriers, would eventually want to be connected with these hyperscalers who will actually set up their data centers in Thailand. So hence, the cross-border connectivity and diversity is what we are planning to do. So we will be adding another 2 more gateways across our neighboring countries cross-border as part of the cross-border expansions, so that we can actually drive the demand for connectivity coming into Thailand and using our SYMPHONY network services. And hopefully with that international gateway, the next thing Sysro will be doing is actually to extend our existing CRS, which is a cable landing station in Rayong, to potentially to serve future new submarine cable that potentially would enhance the international or intra-Asia connectivity, particularly within the ASEAN Asia regions, so that we can actually put Thailand as part of the international connectivity hub as an alternative to Singapore, Malaysia, and potentially to serve the CLMV markets, especially coming from the connectivity perspective. And this infrastructure expansion will be taking at least 2 to 3 years to realize, because the expansions will take by phases and also by milestones, as we are planning up this infrastructure as part of our key roadmap for the next 3 years. And hopefully with that, our connectivity services on track and part of the extensions of our next phase of our connectivity, we will be focusing on the cloud services that we can provide to our enterprise customers today in Thailand, which is actually our own private cloud that we have developed, and we will be providing cloud infrastructure as a services to our clients or our customers in Thailand. We also partner with local cloud providers and the global cloud providers, be it Google, Microsoft, or even AWS, for the public cloud services to some of the multinational customers who require multi-hybrid cloud solutions. Our cloud services are also connected to all the hyperscaler cloud providers in the market today. So with our Cloud Direct Connect services, our SYMPHONY network are directly connected to all those public cloud providers, be it Google Cloud, Huawei, Microsoft, AWS, including IBM, Oracle, depending on where they are hosted locations. Example, it can be in Thailand, Malaysia, or even in Singapore. With our connectivity networks, we'll be able to reach to these hyperscaler cloud providers or public cloud providers in order for our end customers, enterprises, connect to them and use their cloud services as part of their digital transformations, moving from on-prem to the cloud services. Our cloud services are backed by 5 key pillars. First, we are certified CSA Star, which is actually one of the certification for our cloud security services perspective. So we also have ISO 2 ISO that is actually backing our cloud services. We can ensure all the necessary controls, high quality as part of our embedded cloud services and operations. We have a very high SLA that we are giving to our customer for end-to-end service level agreement availabilities, which is 99.95%. And we are able to do this is also because we have fully diversified sites that we can actually run our cloud services platforms. We have 5 diversified locations in Thailand, typically in Bangkok and also eastern side, so that we can provide full redundancy to our customers, and we can ensure a very high SLA. Should any of our locations fail, we can actually move to different diversified locations, so that at any times our 24/7 professional support can be there. We have a one-stop solution with professional teams and also our 24/7 network operation centers to actually support all the inquiries, troubleshootings, or configurations requirements for our customers. So if you look at the next topics, which is actually on the financial performance. So we just closed our Q2 performance and also our first half performance. In short, I think if you're looking at some of the key indicators from financial perspectives, our normalized revenues are growing by 8%. Our EBITDA is up by 5%, and our net profit year on year on a normalized basis is 17%. So this financial performance for first half are actually driven by a few things. First is higher revenue growth coming from extension of our customer base. Our recurring business have actually growing, coming from domestic segment especially, and some of the international segments. We are seeing some upsides in terms of where our international is heading to, typically from our neighboring countries who require connectivity into Thailand or connectivity into Singapore via Thailand terrestrial networks. If you look at our financial balance sheets and our financial growth, I think we are seeing a consistency where we are able to maintain the growth and also the relevant financial ratios from growth or leverage perspective. Our debt is actually at a very minimum today. So if you look at the strong growth coming from financial leverage perspective, I think we are on track. Our balance sheet is still strong. We still have a sizable cash flow that we can support our internally expansion that we need to do. And also we also have our standby credit facilities from the banks in the case that we need to tap into additional debt fundings that we require. So a little bit on the Q2 performance. I mean, the Q2 performance, you basically need to normalize it because if you're comparing to last year's second quarter in 2023, we have a one-time gain coming from our selling of our data center business, which is called AIMS Thailand. So we made a gain about 64 million Thai bahts. So if you exclude it, you should be looking at the normalized, the bottom graph perspective. So revenue is 5% on the normalized perspective. Then EBITDA is negative 2%. Technically, it's because there's a forex gain and loss in each quarters. If you look at normalized profits, we are growing at about 3% year-on-year and 7% Q-on-Q. Across 6 months, first half, we are seeing our revenue 2% year-on-year growth. Our revenue normalized is 8%. Our EBITDA normalized is about 5% year-on-year growth, and our net profit is 70%. All these are driven by we are seeing a lot more demands coming from our domestics and international, and the sales will convert into revenues, and the revenue will drive the net profit in terms of the bottom line coming from additional costs that we need to spend. If you look at the revenue mix contribution today, our 6 months revenue are coming from 40% are coming from internationals. As we are ramping up our enterprises, enterprise is actually moving their percentage more. So today, 45% of our revenue coming from enterprise, plus the wholesale, which is also domestic services. So end-to-end 15% coming from wholesale plus enterprise will give us about domestic services about 60% of our revenue today. In terms of quick one on the cash flow, so today we have about 263 million as of June cash flow. Our operation cash flow is still as per normal, plus our CapEx and also our financial cash flow that we need to pay to our banks, our vendors. We have about net cash flow about 263 that's still remaining in the bank. Our debt maturity today is very stable. We have been actually doing below ratio of 1 for our debt to EBITDA, and also debt to equities, and our EBITDA ratios is also improving. So we also have debt to EBITDA is about 2 to 3%. So in terms of quick financial ratio, from a liquidity standpoint, we are doing relatively stable. Our profitability ratios across GP, EBITDA, and operating profit, including return on asset and return on equities, are as per what you have seen on the slides. We are either maintaining the same ratios positively, and we are hoping that we can actually improve more on the leverage ratios, which today we are actually at all the at a low risk in terms of the leverage ratio, because we have a sizable from an equity standpoint or EBITDA standpoint to cover all our debts commitments. In terms of the growth, I think you have seen already. Today we are running about positive growth on a normalized basis, either from revenue and also the net profit perspective. Okay, a bit on the outlook and guidance before we jump into some of the questions that is coming. I think from the economy point of view, external factors, I think we are seeing some, this year there are some challenges we are facing from economic standpoints. Having said so, this is also driven by a lot of instability in the interest rate, forex, and we are also seeing some change in the economic growth, which are kind of reducing or probably slowing down in Thailand perspective. Maybe hopefully with the new change of the governments or prime ministers, things will be getting back stronger than before. And if you look at the domestic market where we are actually doing right now, I think telco business is still relevant and has potentials that we can actually go further with our customer base and the way that the telco demands coming in the futures, whether coming from connectivity cloud services or even security services. We still believe we can actually offer more upsides to our existing customer base and new customer base. And we believe across different sectors, we have opportunity to tap into the wallet of spending of these enterprises. On the international, I think this is where we are seeing a few elements of change. I think Indo-China market will give us immediately or even short-term to mid-term demands as they are actually ramping up their connectivity coming to Thailand and their connectivity going to Singapore. Hence, we'll be tapping into these Indo-China markets as they are also spending money to build their infrastructure expansions. Hence, that will be relevant for us to tap because we have an extensive network in Thailand and also outside Thailand. Data center setup in Thailand, I think we are seeing Amazon, Google, Microsoft, their plans to set up their local infrastructure in Thailand. But again, this will probably take completions end-to-end in 2025 and 2026. So hopefully this will give us a lot more demands going forwards. Although I would say this year they probably slow down, maybe because of their planning and also their cost-cutting globally, which we have seen in the news. In terms of the financial focus, I think we'll be probably maintaining our capex guidance, between 20 to 25% range. At the same time, we will be probably looking a little bit more on our cost level management because I believe we can actually manage our costs in a more effective way going forward with the plans that we are doing. So a bit on a quick guidance, I think across all the key indicators, I think we will be looking at low to double digit on the outlook perspective that we have, and maybe to some extent our consensus internal estimates will be probably on the conservative mode perspective. So again, just a quick one, I think there's no change in terms of our aspirations. We will be focusing on 4 key pillars, especially to ramp up our enterprise market shares or revenue stream perspective. We will be hoping to grow our cloud and security services as part of our new revenue stream for us in the enterprise markets and for us to expand our customer base. On the international level, we will be working very closely with all the global carriers, OTT cloud content providers, as we believe the future demands using Thailand as part of their hubs. And also our infrastructure expansion, as I mentioned, will definitely help us to become one of the key players in the international markets. So with that, we will continue to be investing into our infrastructures, our products, as we are ramping up our vertical services for our customers in enterprises and our international connectivity. On the operation and how we want to become a very good managed service providers, we will be focusing on excellence DNA that we have, and we will be using different services in differentiator as part of our key differentiating point between us as a service provider with other competitors as well. Okay, I think that's all on my slides, and hopefully will give flavor to our investors or any who joined the call today as part of the opportunity day. And hopefully with the slides that we have presented, a bit on the financial first half, outlook guidance and our plans, I'm more than willing to take up any questions should there be any coming from anyone who joining online today.
ค่ะต่อไปเป็นเซสชั่น Q&A นะคะก็มีคำถามมาบางส่วนซึ่งบางคำถามเนี่ยคุณอเล็กได้อธิบายไปบ้างแล้วในสไลด์ที่เรานำเสนอนะคะเดี๋ยวขออนุญาตแปลเป็นภาษาอังกฤษให้คุณอเล็กฟังแล้วกันนะคะข้อแรกplease describe the current competitive landscape and assess the company competitive strength.
Okay, if you look at the market landscape or the competitor landscape today in a similar market we are doing, so first of all, I think we need to look at where we are today. Symphony is on the B2B markets and we are on the international markets, because we have both domestic infrastructure and international infrastructures. So some of our competitors are also focusing on the same as what Symphony is doing, but maybe they have other business as part of their company product and services. For example, AIS True, they have mobile business and they have non-mobile. So Symphony don't have mobile, okay? So on the non-mobile, they have consumer and enterprises. So consumer we don't have, so we can't compare. But then they have enterprises, which is actually what we are doing. So even AIS True are also our competitors. But again, we are doing different things because we are dedicated to only B2B markets. So we have our professional services dedicated. We have different SLA and also network services availability for our customer who buy services from us. So if you look at non-AIS or True, then we also have other similar operators or providers who are competing with us. Again, in the markets today, if you talk about our real competitors, we have about maybe 6 or 7 competitors who are doing similar things like us. But again, you can't compare apple to apple because some they have, we don't have. Some they have, I don't have. So maybe on the landscapes, you can't have a very direct comparisons. But again, if you look at today, the environment of the markets, let's say we exclude AIS and True, the rest of the fixed line telecommunication providers, I would say we have about 4 or 5 that is actually competing with Symphony. Again, depending on what services we do, because we have different product services, right? So if you look at today's environment, I believe today there are 2 things I'm looking at. First is actually how do we differentiate to our customers with our strengths and our business propositions. We drive our business by the quality and our services. So our quality and services are above everything, because everyone will have the same infrastructures. But what is on top of the infrastructure and how do we do the infrastructure, which then give the different solution to our customers and different SLA, for example. The market today is very challenging because we are competing with 4 or 5 providers. But what I like about these industry sectors is there is no clear winner because some customers they require 2 or 3 providers. So in this case, we will definitely get opportunity to serve these customers. How we serve and how revenue or cost that they were willing to pay, I think this is actually where the game-changing point. If you ask me in future, do we see these competitors' analysis perspective landscape will reduce because there will be more combinations, which is the same as AIS True DTAG before, and we see there's some M&A or synergy coming. I don't disagree. Maybe in the futures, once we're focusing more on the quality, services, and everything, there will be opportunity for a combination of business so that we will actually be driving our values and our price to be more stable, but with less competitors in the pictures. Yeah.
ค่ะก็คือเน้นเรื่องคุณภาพในการแข่งขันด้วยนะคะ next is the trending performance in Q3 will growth as a previous year or previous quarter and why?
Okay. So I think our Q3 or Q4 performance, which is second half, I think we are looking at hopefully probably the same trend as our quarter 2. I would say, the reason is we are a bit more conservative. We are seeing our domestic is taking very fast. But we also have to be very careful with second half because one of our segment is governments, okay? And usually the governments and our partners as our customers, we are seeing probably second half will be more challenging because there's a change in the government examples. And this will put a very direct impact in the next 6 months, how we see things will change. On the international side, we are working with our international customers, especially the big boys, but we are seeing that they have slowed down in terms of their expansions. And this expansion will likely to be in next year, 2025 and 2026, because it takes time for them to plan and for them to construct and get their infrastructure ready completely. So in the second half, I would say on a very conservative, I will probably maintain a very a low stability, low growth comparing to the quarter 2, because I think we need more time to see how the market reacts, especially coming from things that is happening on the external side.
ค่ะก็ตอบแบ่งเป็น2ส่วนนะคะในส่วน domestic กับส่วน international ถ้า domestic ก็คาดประมาณการว่าจะยังคงรักษา growth ได้เหมือนเดิมนะคะแต่ในส่วนของ international เราก็ยังจะปรับลดลงยังคง growth อยู่แต่ว่าอาจจะ growth ไม่เยอะอย่างที่คาดนะคะด้วยเหตุปัจจัยต่างๆภายนอกของกลุ่ม OTT แล้วก็ data center ที่ยังดำเนินการก่อสร้างอยู่ค่ะข้อต่อไปนะคะ How many % growth of overall of year 2024 and what is the key factor to support the growth?
As I mentioned, the growth can come from both our domestic and our international. I believe on the domestic side, the connectivity, cloud, and security will be our key pillar for our expansions in terms of customer base and also the customers' revenue. We do believe the enterprises will continue to invest as part of their infrastructure, connectivity, network expansion. So that would probably where we can actually get more opportunity to serve them. International, I say, there will be a lot of investments coming in. When they invest into the infrastructures here, we can actually serve because we have fiber. Because we have fiber, we have telco license, we have international gateways everywhere. We can definitely serve these demands. So in the future, I believe all this will be one of our key factors why we need to continue to invest and tap into these opportunities. Our focus will still continue to be non-mobile, or what I call it the fixed line services, but we are looking at very closely into the segments we want to drive, which is typically the B2B and the international segments. Yeah.
ก็ยังคงเป็นฟิกไลน์ตาม core business ของธุรกิจนะคะข้อต่อไป How much capex in year 2024? What did the company invest in the first half of this year, and what will you invest in the second half?
I think we will be spending about, roughly speaking, 600 to 800 million Thai baht on our existing capex infrastructures. The infrastructure will come from enhancement, or what I call it improvements, because we have fiber, so sometimes we need to replace our fibers. We have equipment, so we have to replace our network systems, our equipments, and then we have to buy new equipments to serve new customers as part of the cost to acquire the customers. And then we have to extend our fiber coverage so that we can serve more areas, more buildings, more industry estates. So we also put in some capex on that. And then we will probably have more capex on the 3 expansions that I'm talking about, which is the DC to DCs, our gateway, which is at the border. So if we expand more gateways, more border, we have to put in more fiber, more equipments. And then hopefully we'll see how we want to monetize our cable landing stations. There will be an extension there. And we will find ways to expand our fiber footprint to serve some of these highly required from their connectivity perspective, diversity perspective, and low latency perspective. Yeah.
เกี่ยวกับ investment ต่อนะคะมีคำถามหนึ่ง Will you have high investment in the next 3 years?
Okay, so I in the next 3 years, let's say we split into 2 things. Our BAU, business as usual capex, I think will be probably between 20% to 25%. Non-BAU, we are talking about a strategic capex, either for business expansions or maybe for acquisitions, example, or maybe for certain strategic asset investments, example, maybe new cable systems. Those non-BAU, non-business as usual. At this moment, we don't have the solid numbers that we want to share with anyone, but in the event that we need to spend, we will probably make the right announcement to the markets, or maybe we'll disclose in as part of our quarterly announcements, But at this moment, in the next 3 years, we will definitely expect our 20 to 25% the capex that we need to spend.
ค่ะก็ยังคง remain อยู่ที่ 20-25% ของ revenue นะคะต่อมา At the EPC event about data center, how much Symphony got backlog?
So I think on the data center business that we are talking about, we don't have any tracking at this moment on the backlog services. What we measure in terms of pipelines and opportunities, we sign a contract with the customer. If it's a 12-month contract, once we activate and once we deliver the services, we will actually do the billing. Okay, and the billing will be based on the contract. So typically this is how we do the services contract or revenue booking.
Data center implement in Thailand. How market share will Symphony get, and how many company invest in Thailand?
Okay, if you look at our data center footprint today, we have almost 30 data center. We have fiber inside, have our equipment inside, and majority of these data centers we have customer inside. So we can actually serve them inside the data centers or outside the data center, depending on where they want to go. Okay, so it's a bit difficult to have a market share calculations because each data center have different services, and of course we don't own the data center. We will not be able to know how many customers inside the data centers. What we do is to track, whether these data centers have any good potential customers, whether it's enterprise customers or whether they are more international customers. And how we do is we believe each of the data centers, including the new data centers, we will be always asking the right questions to the data centers. Who are your customers? If the customers are international, then we have different ways to put our infrastructures inside the data centers. If it's an enterprise, then we will have different requirements, and then we will actually do the investment on the connection to the data center in different ways. Yeah.
ก็คือลงทุนในแตกต่างกันไปขึ้นอยู่กับลูกค้าที่อยู่ในแต่ละ data center นั้นๆด้วยนะคะยังเหลือเวลาประมาณ4 นาทีน่าจะเป็นคำถามสุดท้ายแล้วค่ะ Please provide guideline detail on trends, business and revenue in year 2025, 2024, 2026, both domestic and international market.
Okay, I think usually we don't do forecasts and openly to share with our investors. But in terms of the guidelines and the outlook, I still see the next 3 years for the enterprise markets to continue to grow. And I'm actually assuming the economy is growing. There's no disruption to the Thai politics, and the telco markets are also stable. And I think there will be more demand for connectivity, cloud, and also security. Why I see that is because there will be more digital transformation in Thailand for enterprises. They need more data demand, they need more internet access, they need more cloud services, infrastructures to drive their network or even IT expansions. They will build more application and services. So everything will have to be consuming data, internet, and also the cloud storage. So we believe that domestic will continue to grow. Maybe I would say it's between 10 to 15% year on year. Okay, on a very constant the environments. Okay, no big change in the economy or whatever. On the international revenues, I think 2025 to 2027, I think this will be the readiness of the data centers coming in from the foreign investments. We will be seeing the data demand connectivity will grow at least double in terms of bandwidth consumptions. Okay, we will believe more data centers will be set up in Thailand because there will be more AI driven there will be more cloud requirements coming in. There will be more end users and connected to these neighboring countries. So what happened is we see Thailand as a new hub in the next 5 to 10 years to potentially compete with Malaysia and Singapore. And how to drive this data center to come in or the big boys to come in, we need a very good combination of economic policy, incentive policies, whether it's BOI, EEC, So if they were to come in, I believe the data connectivities, international markets, regional markets would help us to grow in the next 3 years. And how do we benefit from that? It also depends on how we expand our infrastructure today. So what I share with you is also for the next 3 years, because infrastructure needs to be ready so that we can actually tap into this demand coming from international. So this is also quite important. We will spending our capex in the next 3 years, 20 to 25%. Hopefully we will get more upsides from the international markets once they land and once they complete in Thailand.
ค่ะภาพรวมยังคิดว่าธุรกิจนี้ยังคงไปได้ดีในอีกภายใน 2-3 ปีข้างหน้านะคะทางบริษัทก็มีการเตรียมพร้อมเพื่อรองรับการเติบโตในอนาคตค่ะก็สำหรับวันนี้ใกล้หมดเวลาแล้วค่ะทางบริษัท Symphony Communication จำกัดมหาชนขอบพระคุณทุกท่านที่เข้าร่วมรับชมการนำเสนอผลงานและตอบคำถามจากผู้บริหารในครั้งนี้นะคะแล้วก็หวังว่าจะพบกันใหม่ในโอกาสหน้าค่ะบริษัท Symphony Communication ขอบพระคุณทุกท่านค่ะสวัสดีค่ะ